Hi, everybody. I am so glad that we're here today. For all of you that are watching this video, I am Victoria Valdez. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am the founder and owner of Tri-Synergy Counseling, and we're located in Middle Tennessee. Some of these therapists today are from different areas of Middle Tennessee, but my office is located in Brentwood. It is October. It is Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm super excited to invite these awesome, lovely Latina therapists to share with the community, to spotlight you guys, to feature you guys, and let our Latinx community know that you are here and that therapy is valuable, important, and here to help. So with that being said, I'd love for you guys to introduce yourselves, each one of you, and let's just start. Go ahead and start.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Shellsea Morales. I am a LMFT Associate Marriage and Family Therapist and temp licensed LPC MHSP at Hampton House Counseling in South Nashville. And so that is where I'm doing group practice work, and I love it there. We serve primarily BIPOC and queer population in Tennessee, virtually and in person. And I'm a Nashville native. I'm from here. So yeah, South Nashville's home. So it really is, very special to me to be able to serve a community that has served me my whole life. So this work for me is very rewarding in that respect, but also because since I was a little girl, I've always wanted to be a therapist, and queer and BIPOC populations were the populations that I've always wanted to serve. So very rewarding.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Hi, everybody. I'm Diann Sarabia. I'm an LMSW at Nashville Emotional Wellness Counseling. I've been there for about over a year. I provide services in Spanish and in English, in person and virtually. And we serve like a variety of populations, specifically BIPOC population. I became kind of a therapist because I wanted to break that cycle and provide mental health services to my community and have therapy be accessible as well.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much. All right. Our next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dani. I'm an LPC MHSP temp. Working to get my full licensure. I currently work at Healing Umbrella, which is in West Nashville. We primarily serve the LGBTQ population, but we'll see anybody. I offer services in Spanish and in English, virtual or in person. I was born in Madrid, so not Latin America, but I did spend 2 years in Argentina. So if I start speaking Spanish, you might wonder what kind of accent is going to come out, and so do I.
I love that.
I love working with people who have immigrated, who have been here all their lives, that are first, second, third generation. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so excited about this, guys. You guys are awesome. I love this. I love this. So you guys told us your names, a little bit about your credentials, what type of therapist you are, where you guys are from. I love that. Now, some of you mentioned you work at group practices, and some of you did share a little bit about your group practice. So let's go ahead and start with Shellsea. Could you tell us a little bit more about your practice?
Yes, of course. So at Hampton House, as I mentioned, we serve marginalized communities. So what that looks like is low socioeconomic background, BIPOC, queer, all marginalized populations are welcome and safe at Hampton House. Specifically me, I serve Spanish-speaking and English-speaking clients virtually and in person. And there's one other therapist with me that also does Spanish speaking and English speaking in person and virtual therapy. And all of our therapists come from marginalized communities. So if not Hispanic or Latinx, they are of another marginalized background or, something of that nature. And so that is good because it's our community serving each other. So I love that.
No, I love that. I'm very familiar with the Hampton House. Actually, I'm familiar with each of your guys' practices that you work at, and they do great work. So I love that. Awesome. Go ahead, Diann. What about if you could tell us a little bit more about your guys' group practice and a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, at National Emotional Wellness, new for short, and kind of like Shellsea's and Hampton House, like we love to work with marginalized communities. We have such a very diverse group of clinicians there, so there's always like a variety for different people depending on like each other's needs. We offer like sliding scales, tiered services as well, just to make services more affordable for our clients. And we love to kind of just like reach out and help the community. I think we've been really doing that a lot recently. We're just being out in the community and making ourselves present to be able to support, and also just like breaking that barrier. I think that's really important for me, being able to break that mental health stigma and have services be very accessible. And I think that's kind of been like one goal with even just being a clinician, being able to provide services in Spanish, in English, and with a variety of populations.
That's awesome. Really quick, Chelsea, I couldn't remember. Did you say that you guys also take insurance, or you guys private pay with the sliding scale?
Yeah, we have both private pay and sliding scale, and some therapists do take Cigna or Evernorth.
Okay, awesome. And then I know you mentioned the sliding scale, Diann, and some of them are taking insurance or no?
Yes, so it also depends on the clinician. I know we also work with like TenCare and United Healthcare and Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then also the sliding scale and our tiered system as well.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you. And Dani, tell us a little bit more about your practice and what you do there. And then,
Yeah.
of course, also what kind of the fee service. That was great that you guys were like, oh, yes, we also offer this scale fee. So
Yeah. So at Healing Umbrella, we do see diverse clients. We again, we see LGBTQ primarily, but really we're open to everyone. We're having a team meeting on next month to kind of figure out how to expand that. So definitely going to bring in more intentionality into that. We are private pay and offer super bills for out of network. But we also have some sliding scales if the therapist can do it. We have interns that are a lot more affordable, and we also have a few scholarships that have been provided by people in the community. So maybe you qualify for them, maybe you don't. But yeah, so yeah.
Awesome. You just got to try, right? They might qualify, they might not, but it's worth a try, right? I love that. I love how the group practices are doing such different affordable options, right? That's at Trice Energy. That's what we try to have. We have a sliding scale. We have clinicians who take insurance, such as myself. And then we also have student interns that are master level interns, right? That are in their master's program. And so that gives an affordable rate to our community, right? I love that you brought that up, because I think that a lot of times our communities, all of our communities, don't realize how valuable and how much quality care you can get from a master's level counseling intern as well. Since they have, right? You guys remember your intern days where you have supervisors, right, that are licensed therapists. I feel like you're like, when I was an intern, I felt like I was like a 4-in-1. You know, I had all these supervisors helping me guide my therapy sessions as I developed as a therapist, and it felt like I was giving really quality care. So I love that that a lot of your sites are doing that. And I want to put a shout out to when you from the Hampton House, the Ashley and Beth, and the nonprofit that they have, Healing in the Margins, because that's a great place for clients to actually, if you don't mind doing a blurb about, so I don't mess it up, so clients know how to use that service.
Yeah, so Healing in the Margins is a nonprofit that Ashley and Beth Hampton, the owners of Hampton House Counseling, they came up with Healing in the Margins Therapy Fund. So essentially what it is you apply to be on the list to get an application for the Healing in the Margins Therapy Fund. And then once you get that application sent to your email, you will go ahead and, like, if you get accepted for the Healing in the Margins, which they'll accept if you're a BIPOC, marginalized community, or queer. And then you'll be granted 12 free sessions with the therapist of your choice. So it does not have to be a Hampton House or Clarksville House of Healing therapist. It can be a therapist that is outside of Hampton House or Clarksville. So yeah, any therapist of your choice, as long as they're BIPOC, queer, or some other kind of marginalized population, they'll go ahead and get that 12 free sessions if they get selected to, be a part of that. Sometimes there is a waiting list for that just because it's gotten so popular now, but that is something that I'm really glad that Ashley and Beth created.
Yeah, there's some great non-profits such as Healing the Margins that are doing that, right? So our community can have access to quality mental health care services at a rate that they can afford, right? So I love that. Thank you I was like, I didn't want to mess that up. So I was like, I knew that you knew about it since you work for Ashley and Beth. So I was like, you'll do a better explanation. So thank you. Awesome, guys. This is wonderful. So starting back we'll go back to Shellsea. I know you answered a question for me, but we'll go back to you. So you guys all, maybe a few of you hit on why you became a therapist. So if you already answered that question, that's your introduction, maybe elaborate a little bit more. But Shellsea, why did you choose the therapy profession?
Of course, I feel like in La Cultura Latina, therapy is very taboo. It's not talked about. Mm-hmm. And so when I got older and I started looking at it started with marriages. I was always asking this question of what makes a marriage last? That's where it kind of all began for me. I mean, I was in middle school, so it probably came from a rom-com or something, but I was what makes marriages last? And then it got more into families. And then I noticed I was super interested in what was your upbringing like? I always wanted to know, I was why are you the way that you are?
Why are you doing those things?
So the curiosity, and eventually I pursued it. But I think now the reason why I know that I'm in the right field is because I love unlearning and helping other people unlearn what has essentially been passed down to us and redefining what it means to be strong. That asking for help is also strength, but that's not something that historically Latinx population grew up hearing. Our elders were not raised with the idea that rest is a part of the process.
Right. Or we only ask for help for certain things, but not for what we're dealing with in the inside of ourselves, right?
Yes. So I love redefining that and helping shape this new age, new generation of Hispanic and Latinx clients that come to therapy. And not even just Hispanic and Latinx, but BIPOC, because I find that this is common in Black culture and other BIPOC culture that historically, our elders and our ancestors were just not taught, that it's okay to ask for help. And we've had to be strong all these years, but it's okay to have help here and then. So that's why I became a therapist and am still a therapist.
I love that. Thank you. Go ahead, Diann.
So kind of same as Shellsea, being able to break that stigma, but I think it's really important, especially with the community that I target, which is refugee and immigrant backgrounds, targeting that moving and immigrating to a new country is trauma within itself, or those stories we heard growing up of what made our parents strong and not I don't need therapy because I did all this. No, that's actually probably why you need therapy, right? All that is trauma and all that is healing, and being able to break that cycle and say mental health is important. It's not just getting up and having to go to work and working extra hard and filling up your day just so you don't think about the things that you're going through.
Right.
And
yeah.
Because I feel that's what I've seen a lot within also just the Hispanic community, just working long hours, coming home, also taking care of the house, and kind of what Shellsea had, rest is a part of the healing process. And definitely within the population that are served, starting with children, but also with adults, in that mindset of hey, these cycles can be broken at a young age, but also if you're already at an adult stage, redefining yourself and being able to find who you are. And I think that's kind of like, for me, one thing that I really learned, especially when I went away to college, is being able to be my own person.
Yeah.
Still take my culture into consideration, but be able to develop and heal. And that's kind of in a space that I want to be able to provide to people. Yeah.
It's awesome. I love that. I love the idea of like integrating, right? Like, because a lot of our Latinx Hispanic communities, we're very collective, right, group minded, and so being able to redefine our own independence, but without throwing out our own culture 100%, right?
Yeah.
So we're redefining it and making it ours. So I love that. What about you, Dani? What led you to be a therapist?
Yeah, so I always wanted to help people for a living. My major in undergrad was in social justice, and I think that I think millennials are. I've heard us called the Y generation. Like we ask why, and kind of like Chelsea was saying, and I heard it in like a derogatory way, but I think it's a good thing. I think
Yeah.
being curious about why people are the way they are, and trying to get to understand them and see them. One of my favorite grad professors told me that everybody makes sense in the context of their story. And I think that if we can get to know people and the context that they're in, we can definitely see why they are the way they are. And I think that, my dad kind of had a lot of emotional regulation problems, and also like kind of left the family for a bit. And I think that that's the question I've always wanted to have an answer to. And it might not be one I ever get, but being able to work on communication and, kind of working on introspection and helping people kind of figure out who they are and who they truly are, not just who the world tells them that they are, is something that really brings me joy.
Yeah.
And also the fact that I was kind of a third culture kid, kind of from Spain and from the United States, but not from either one really. At the same time, kind of made me look with a different lens at the way culture operates. And like a lot of things that people in the United States do, I always thought, well, that's weird. And vice versa. Like, what is the Pledge of Allegiance? That felt culty when I first got here. Because
They don't do that in Spain.
No, we don't even have the Spanish flag in the classroom. That was very bizarre. So kind of learning that different cultures do things differently, and kind of learn where each client is coming from. It's something that I look forward to and get to help them kind of think about. If that's something that comes up in the therapy session.
Yeah, I love that. And I appreciate how vulnerable you were just talking about your experience with your dad. And I think that a lot of times, all of us, there's a inkling of some type of trauma that we've experienced, or some type of pain that we experienced, whether it was generational or in our life, that also kind of opened us up into becoming healers, right? Like as we search for our own healing. So I loved hearing that as well. And then I also loved that third culture reference. That was such an interesting, I was like, I'm sure it's probably something I've never even heard about, but was like, oh, that makes sense, And I wanted to say, I didn't share this early on, but so I'm Mexican American. This is gonna sound weird. I identify as Mexican American. I know my husband is from Mexico, and his family call me La Tejana or the Chicana because I'm from Texas. And so I'm like, well, I'm sure I fit into those categories too, but I like to identify as Mexican American. And so with that being said, I loved watching Selena and listening to Selena growing up, and I'm aging myself here, but I would think I was about 11, maybe when we're 10 when she died. Don't do the math, guys. I just and I remember when we saw the movie, and that one of the things I felt so much is when her dad, if you guys seen it and remember this, if you've seen it, but how her dad was like, we're right over there, Mija, like our home country, right? Mexico was like right there. We gotta, know just as much about John Wayne and like Pedro Infante or Vicente. I can't remember which one he said, like, feeling, I always grew up feeling that even though I was born here, that I wasn't from there or from here. Feeling other, right? So I wanted to share that I was I connected to that too. So awesome. Thank you guys so much. As we carry on here, my questions, you guys are doing amazing. So let's start back here with Shellsea and tell me how this is your time to share with us. Like, how do you specifically help people? Like, is there any type of, I know many of you talked about first gen or immigrant background, but is there anxiety or something? What does you really, really get excited about helping, and how do you go about that?
Yeah, so how I help people is, especially when I work with immigrant, refugee, first gen background, even though like I have firsthand knowledge of that myself, of first gen knowledge, like myself from my experience, I have to, come into the room knowing that they could also be first gen, but their first gen experience could be like way different, or their parents could have a completely different immigration story. I'm Central American. My parents are Central American, and so I have Central American background. And so I could be seeing a client, and I have clients who are also Central American, but their part that they were from, or their story about moving over to the United States, looks completely different than that of my parents. And when they talk about their children, they're raising their children in different ways than my parents raised me. And so coming into the room with like really that like clean slate, that open mind, that like, yes, this person has this experience, but I'm going to ask them about it as if it was the first time that anyone has ever told me about like their story, about their experience. I always act like, I have no idea. And that's the truth, is that I really don't. And so that is my like firsthand approach for meeting any client of any like immigrant first gen background or anything of that nature, is when I see experiences similar to mine, I still try to keep in mind that it could look very different. I find that with some elder populations that have gone through a lot of living without therapy, without the normalization of therapy, using a solution-focused approach has been very helpful, because sometimes they kind of need to see the proof is in the pudding. They like hearing about and talking about like the solution rather than, problem-based, rather than like all of these other story of origin, contextual things. I would rather focus on the here and now. And so that is something that I have found to be very effective with the elder population where therapy was not normalized or seeking help was not normalized. Now, for my clients who come in for processing childhood wounds, for, processing in their 20s or 30s, processing things that happened, things that are showing up in their current relationships, I find that psychoanalytic or psychodynamic theory is very helpful for that, really focusing on like their story of origin, or object relations theory, which falls into that psychoanalytic category, is really focusing on like, what was the relationship like with the caregiver? What other past experiences have led you, to create these beliefs, to create these, ideas that you've continued to carry with you throughout a long time of life. And so those are some, like, I do utilize any other, a lot of other modalities to cater to my clients' needs, but those are what come up for me the most when working with Latinx, immigrant, first gen backgrounds. And so, yeah. But really I serve children about like ages 5 to, I think my eldest client has been in their early 70s. So a good amount of range, but mostly of what I get are young adults to like mid 30s, early 40s. That's the range about like what I see a lot of the most. And both of 50-50 on like first gen and immigrant populations.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, I was going to ask you guys to elaborate on so thank you for doing that, like what ages you guys see. So thank you. And let's go to you, Diann. What about you?
Yeah, for me, I kind of like Shellsea want to like start with like a clean slate. I think it's for me, it's very important that individuals are able to tell their own story and be able to kind of build off of their inside. I'm from a Mexican background. My parents are from Mexico. I was born in Nashville. But even if people are from the same place, like everyone's story is different. And I love kind of providing a space where clients can feel like this is like a fresh start for them. The most like if they feel like a problem is really small, like here, if it's like affecting them, then it's a problem we can talk about, and it's something that we can explore and how it's impacted them. And even if others don't see it that way, like it's clearly something that they want to dissect. And kind of what Shellsea said with my older adults, it's that solution like based therapy is really important because they are already like integrated in the culture. They have these ideas and mindset, and it's honestly at times difficult to dissect that and have them think a different way or even try to see it through different lenses. So being able to like find solutions to what they're struggling with, or even just like pinpoint like, okay, these are the reasons why we're feeling this way or the struggles, because they also come with like families, and being able to address that and how that's impacting their family as well. And I think I love to kind of incorporate that with my older like adults, like being able to like, okay, yes, we are talking about these things, we're finding solutions, but also we're going to keep in mind how our behavior and our responses are impacting your family as well. I love to kind of just work with like just family-based and relational, like how our relationships impact us. And with that, like exploring my younger population and how their relationship with their family and their friends, and kind of even being immersed in two different cultures have impacted them, whether like they go outside of their home and they experience life very differently, but they come home and the culture is different as well because their family has this mindset or this umbrella term. Or even I've had clients come in, it's like, yeah, like I don't really tell my family that I'm going to therapy because they won't understand.
Yes.
And I think that's really important because I typically like our clients are with us for like 50 minutes and then they have like an entire week still experiencing those barriers at home and in the community. So being able to kind of help them navigate that and not only implement like our strategies in our sessions, but how they can implement it outside, struggling with those kind of difficult relationship with the parents, especially with like, I feel like I get that a lot from my teens, right? They feel so like helpless at times where it's like my family doesn't see like this is a problem, but it is.
Yes.
So I think they really definitely kind of working with that. And at times with my younger clients, bringing in their family and like kind of working together, like this is kind of how you were brought up. This is what you're teaching your kids, but how is it impacting them? Right? Like nobody's saying you're a bad parent. Nobody's saying that you're doing things wrong, but there could be different ways to address them.
Right. Yeah.
So kind of providing that space of like where everyone has a voice, but we're also able to deep dive and dissect like what exactly we're using that voice for and how it's impacting others. And with the population I serve, I think my youngest has also been like 4 or 5. And then my oldest has been around like the 50s. But and also like with Spanish speaking, like being able to break down those terms, because not a lot of people don't really understand like the big clinical terms used. And even like me, when starting like therapy in Spanish, I'm like, I don't know what these words mean.
No, right? None of our parents
were
were like, what is it? Cognitive therapy, terapia cognitivo, or I think it's cognitivo, right? Like, I'm like, no one talked about that, right?
Yeah, so I've even had to catch myself. Like I've even had to catch myself and be like, okay, so like, how can I work this into a session, but also have clients leave a session feeling like they can implement these skills outside of it, even with those barriers that they have.
Yes, yeah, I love that. I love, I was hearing some, like, I got excited thinking about like my systems training, right? Family and systems, as a marriage and family therapist, hearing that the family dynamic, right? And how it's, they're interplaying, the systems are interplaying, right, with ourselves, right, and all that. So I really loved that. And then the other thing too, when you talked about, that's, I'm sure all of us can say this too, that many of our clients, if we're seeing like teenager or young adult Latinx or Hispanic community members, I remember having a few clients that were Latinx Hispanic that were like in their first like 4 years of college, and they were like, oh yes, Victoria, I'm taking anxiety med, but I can't tell my parents. And I was like, what? Like, as being, I'm like 5th generation Mexican American. People, I always, when people ask about my heritage journey, so I'm like, I feel like I've been reconnecting through my husband to my Mexican roots. So I'm more acculturated, I guess, or what's that word? So like, oh, medicine, yeah. We're kind of a little bit not too, I grew up too, like, no, medicine wasn't our first, but I'm more open to it, right? Whereas many first gen families or immigrant families are like, nope. Right. And it's like, wow, you got to hide. You have to feel like you have to hide taking anxiety medication from your own parents and you're like 25 years old. You know, people don't understand that outside of our culture, right? And so I liked how you brought that up too. So Dani, let's hear about you.
Yeah. Can you do me a favor and repeat the original question?
Yes. I don't remember my question. I was just kidding. I was like, I have my notes. So I was like, no. So I was just asking you guys to kind of just tell me a little bit about what kind of maybe modalities or how does therapy look like for you? Like letting clients know, like, what does it look like for you to do therapy? What do you do with them? Yeah.
Sorry. Not. Thank you. So yeah, for me, you know, similar to what Shellsea and Diann were saying, I go in, you know, knowing about cultures and backgrounds, but I don't expect anything. I don't, you know, they can be, you know, anywhere on the spectrum of, yeah, this is they you know, their stereotypes to complete opposite. And I kind of go in there knowing that maybe I'm the expert between the two of us in therapy, but I'm not the expert on the client. That's so I kind of go in there with a student mindset of like just kind of wanting to learn more, and a curiosity mindset of, you know, I wonder you know, what was it like kind of growing up. I do a little bit of an internal genogram, maybe not like on paper or anything, but kind of get to know the background of the family. Try to get to understand any traumas involved when it comes to like having come here or having lived here. Was there any bullying for any racist experiences that they've had? I also see, sorry, before I forget, I see clients 12 and up. I will forget to say that later. But yeah, I kind of use, I'm normally with immigrants, there is some solution focused therapy there. So my like actual, my clients who have actual, what do we call it? Whenever we need insurance to know that there's a diagnosis, but adjustment disorder.
Yes.
Yeah. That's often been with immigrants, that I found that that's actually what they have.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of anxiety that I've noticed, especially lately with, you know, ICE and kind of crackdowns on immigration, which, you know, has been true with, you know, in the past, but is a lot truer now. And it's really scary. It also gets in the way of therapy, as far as like what they want to work on versus now they have to deal with this.
Right.
But yeah, and then when it comes to, you know, first gen or I'm kind of I focused on motivational interviewing, kind of person centered, trying to get to know the person and you know, ask them, you know, what would it look like to try this? Because sometimes, you know, like you were saying about like medication, for example, maybe their family would be cool with it, maybe they would not, and so they know what is safe and what is not. And so I think it's fair to ask them, you know, what would it look like to do this? Because they can say it would actually be a very bad idea, rather than trying to give them advice or trying to say, this is what I think you should do this. Because I think that's just bad therapy anyway. But but also kind of it gives me more of an idea of what their daily life is like, and they have to go live it. At the end of the day,
Right.
I don't have to walk in their shoes, except for when I'm trying to relate to them. But as far as like living the consequences of their actions, that's something they have to worry about. And so I keep that in mind, knowing that what matters is what they feel about the situation, what they feel about their decisions, and not what I might feel about it. I'm here to help them, not tell them what to do.
Yeah. I loved that so much, that piece, especially about, thank you for sharing, all of you sharing, but Dani, I really like that piece of like, we don't have to deal with the consequence of their decision, right? Because it's, or the way you said it was beautiful. I think I butchered it, but like the idea of if we're telling them what to do, right, and not taking in their family culture, right? Even within, we all kind of touched, even within the Latinx / Hispanic community, right? We all we're all under that umbrella, but we all have had different experiences, just the four of us even in this space, right? And so I loved that so much, because that's something that I think that our non-Latinx, non-Hispanic therapists may not realize, like, some of these, like CBT, when we use cognitive behavioral therapy and reframing, and like some of these modalities are really great, but we have to adapt them to our community. Right. So they have to be adapted to our community. Right. So
Yeah.
I loved that. Thank you so much. You guys are doing amazing. So, okay. Where did I leave off here? Okay. Okay, you guys all kind of, this question that I had here was about what are common mental health issues that you're seeing in the community, and how they appear in people's lives. Some of you talked a little bit of like anxiety. I'm just going to open the floor to see, does anyone want to kind of jump in and kind of what are common things that you're seeing in the Latinx community and how they're showing up in people's lives?
I see a lot of, unfortunately, human trafficking. I know in a lot of Latinx countries, unfortunately, that is like a hot spot for that type of crime. And so I have had a good amount of clients that have been sex trafficked. And so doing a lot of that trauma work, doing a lot of, security seeking, a lot of that like type of body scanning, regulating of nervous system, that's a good amount. That general sexual abuse is something that like I specialize in. I see a lot of clients that have been sexually abused outside of the Hispanic and Latinx community as well. But also I like that Dani highlighted what has been going on with ICE, especially here in Tennessee. There has been a lot from, yes, the refugee and immigrant community, but also first gen. Like myself, I've lived here my whole life, and I know that our community is hurting right now because, I mean, if I've been here my whole life, there's a bunch of other Hispanic and Latinx families that have lived here their most of their life or their whole life here too. That when ICE got the opportunity to now be able to profile in Tennessee, I know our community felt a lot of betrayal. It's kind of like, well, the officers that have been working for years know that we're here. Were they just waiting, And so a lot of our community and long-term immigrant residents are really hurting right now. And so that is a very important issue that I know that you, Victoria, Dani, and Diann, we're all seeing, and some of our fellow Latinx therapists are also seeing. And so I want to go ahead and highlight that and let you guys know that I see you guys, I see the, what people are bringing in. I know that there's probably a higher demand for virtual sessions right now too, for clients that want to continue coming to therapy. And so, I kind of just want to let you guys know that, I feel for all of us, and, I'm glad that we can be in this space and have community together, but I know that that's an issue that we're all seeing.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I definitely want to jump in, but I want you guys to have space to jump in on anything that Shellsea said, or even just what else you're seeing could be about ICE or just other things.
Yeah, I think I would have to just second Chelsea on everything that she said. It's especially with like providing those virtual sessions for our clients. I know I've had a few that were in person that were moved to virtual sessions, and also at times like focusing our sessions on even providing resources for our families and our clients, being able to be like, these are the places that you can reach out to. In case anything does happen, or providing like little red cards during our sessions, whether it's one or multiple that they can pass out in the community, because I know it's a very big stressor. And I think I've seen a lot of spike in just like anxiety, and that's a big thing that, it's not only just like nervousness. That's what kind of like the label of anxiety it is, but it's like the fear of not being able to go grocery shopping, not being able to go to work. Like there was a lot of families that struggled with even going to work because they were stopping them during just like random stops that didn't even make sense half the time or at all ever. So being able, like seeing that spike up and finding different ways, and like, it's hard to just be like, well, just do this coping skill and your anxiety can go away. And it's not that, because we have families living in fear, and we have communities, and there has been so many amazing people out here doing the work, being able to be like, hey, these are places that ICE has been spotted in, like beware of where you're going to if you do go out, know your rights, or carry certain resources with you. So I think that's kind of just been a really big change, and very like drastic too, because like Chelsea said, like our community felt betrayed with like just even being like racially profiled now and making it legal. Like, of course it happened before, but now it's like, we're gonna do this because we can now.
Yeah, no, and I hear the word. I was doing a training for healing in the margins on the Latinx community and how to provide cultural, and I'm doing it again as a fundraiser for them and their Latinx therapy fund. But what I was going to say is that I talked about advocacy in the training, and that's what I hear you guys all saying, right? And advocacy, like our therapy is always, there's a sliver of advocacy, but more than ever now, right? Advocacy, case managing, resources, right? Yeah, so thank you for sharing that, Diann. What about you, Dani?
Yeah, I have to third what Chelsea was saying, second what Diann was saying. Just whenever the ICE rate started to begin to pick up, I was actually working at the sexual assault center, and I was there part-time, but all of the clients that I was seeing were Latina clients, and all of them moved to virtual at the same time. And it was like that for several months, at least until I finished my time up there. But yeah, I knowing just how impactful this is in just daily living, and just kind of seeing the world differently, kind of like looking out for it. And like I remember like at the sexual assault center we had those know your rights kind of meeting where we invited clients to just come and for free, and to be able to kind of get to know, what do you have to do whenever you're stopped? What do you not have to do? What do you have to say, not say, to, just to know your rights whenever people are trying to trap you, because that's kind of what you have to look out for now is, the trap. And I remember going a few months ago to Murfreesboro. I was dog sitting for a friend, and there must have been at least within a mile on the interstate, like at least 7 to 10 cop cars. And I was like, in the middle of the night, they're not just. I'm sure all these people weren't just speeding. So
Right.
resources like Music City Migros Watch. I got to a point where I could pull over and I let them know, hey, at between Nashville and Murfreesboro, there's that it's like they're out for blood. So just let everyone know and be aware that to not go at this part of town at this, and it's how we have to do that. But it's looking out not just for our specific clients, but for the community in general, kind of, and not just just because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Yeah, that's right. And Remix Tennessee is another one I think that's doing it, and Amiga to watch. And like, right, this is where we're like, right, advocating and resources, and because our community is hurting. And I do want to say to each of you, I know we all have different backgrounds in the umbrella of the Latinx Hispanic community, but I know we're all feeling it, and so I appreciate you guys and the work that you do. And I always am just praying and thinking and good vibes and protection and all the things for all of our families, because whether we're born here or not, it does feel like there is a target on our backs. And it's like we are, as Latinx, Hispanic, Chicano, Tejano, all the identifiers, right? I feel like there's like 30 identifiers, but under the umbrella of our culture, like we are carrying the pain of our community, and then we're also in pain, and we're also scared, and so this is a tremendous work that we're doing, and it's very difficult work. And so thank you guys for what you're doing. I just would add that I've seen a lot for my own clients, lots of panic attack disorder, panic attack more than ever. Because of the trauma of all of this going on, right? Specifically around the raids and separation anxiety in adults more than ever. I mean, just PTSD of separate clients who have been physically separated, right, from their family. I do work with children as young as 3-ish, 4. 3 is more of like parent-child work versus seeing the child on their own. And so even like the little, kiddos, parents working on, some of the therapy work is advocating on giving them resources and advocation on having, signing oh my gosh, I can't remember it in Spanish or English, but who will, in the event that you are deported, who will take care of my children or pay my house rent or whatever. Like, therapy is becoming a lot more of that, of having a plan of action. Now your safety plan is your basic needs being met. How are we going to get this, right? I'm pregnant and my partner has been deported, now what am I going to do, right? So that's a lot of the stuff that I've been seeing as far as my client caseload as well. So these are deep topics, guys, but this is good. I know that people that are watching this are going to get a lot out of this. Okay, we've got probably about 4 more questions. We're doing really good, guys. Okay, so, we kind of already covered this one question. I had that question, guys, about what other mental health issues or things that you've seen in the pop or any stats that you have. But I feel like unless anybody else wanted to add anything outside of what we talked about, anxiety and panic attack and PTSD trauma, does anyone else wanted to share an extra? Oh, I've also seen this. I know depression, right? That's a big one. But does anyone want to add anything else? If not, no big deal. We can jump into the next question.
I would just add identity work.
Yes.
I think Diann up, or maybe someone else. But what part of my culture do I keep? What part of U.S. culture do I take?
How do I integrate? Yeah.
Great, and it, you're not given a guidebook, and you feel pressure from every angle, and there is no right answer, and ultimately that's up to you. But yeah, it's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially first gen.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, something I'm going to jump in, and anyone else can jump into as well. I was thinking as you said that identity work, I thought about, so I do immigration evals. Some of you may have known that. I know Chelsea knows that, but so I do immigration evals pretty regularly. But I will say, surprisingly, at least for me, I don't know about other therapists who do immigration evals, it's almost kind of slowed down a little bit. So I can't attest to in this moment, but I will say, backing up a little bit before the new administration, a lot of the evals that I did were around asylum seeking for our LGBTQ queer Latinos and Hispanics that were coming from other countries that were killing out, where there was no protection for them. And they were, on top of it was like a double whammy. They were indigenous from their country, like from Guatemala or Mexico or Peru, indigenous and part of the queer community. And so you reminded me of that, Dani, when you said doing identity work, because I feel like our BIPOC community, Latinx as well, but all of our BIPOC, when we have our queer community members, it's like a double trauma or a double difficulty for them as well. So I feel that there's a lot of work that goes in that we create safe spaces for them to be able to process their identity with us, right? Yeah, I don't know if anyone wanted to add or or anything else before we go to the next question. Okay. All right. So real quickly, guys, and whoever wants to go first is fine with me. For the non-therapists who are watching this, not just our community members, right? But for non-Latinx Hispanic therapists that are not part of our community, what are a few tips or strategies or cultural considerations that they can be mindful of or implement when they're working with our community members?
I think I would kind of go back and summarize kind of what we all said when working with our clients, like just having an open mind, starting from scratch, and emphasizing what Dani said about like tweaking modalities to serve the population. And I think that's a really big one because a lot of our treatment modalities were centered over white men. So being able to tweak them and have them work, and it's also like trial and error, right? Like not everything is going to work, not a specific modality, but being able to tweak them for the Latinx population, and also acknowledging the bias that we have. And yes, maybe you have a large chunk of your population from a specific country or a specific region, but not everyone faces or goes through these same things that others do. So I think kind of just acknowledging our minds and also like learning from our clients as well. Like also what Dani said, being like they're an expert on their lives. Like we're an expert on what we do, but they're an expert on their lives and being able to provide that safe space for them.
Awesome. Thank you. Did anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, to piggyback off of what Diann said is, strengthening that cultural competency and like exactly how she said, like going into it with a clean slate. I think it's okay to have a general sense of like common things, or like therapy has not been normalized for us historically, but always go into it, because what are the chances that their parents are simultaneously in therapy now too, So I've been seeing a few of that, which I'm like, but I'm like, that's good. I mean, that's not everybody, but like that's good. There are some families that are, more progressive, even though a lot of Hispanic and Latinx families have, keep very traditional values. They can also have progressive ones, like I've seen opposite ends of like almost every spectrum. And so it's like, it's okay to have a general sense to like keep in the back of your mind, so as they're saying things, maybe you can start to puzzle some pieces together. But if the puzzle pieces don't match the expected picture, then it's okay to create a new one. But exactly how Dani and Diann said,
I love that. Did you want to add anything else, Dani? You guys are like so good. I was like, this is so good. I was like, anything, I don't know. Oops. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
I thought I accidentally muted myself, but we're good. I was like, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would say, stay humble. You no matter how much cultural competency training you've had, you haven't lived within that. I mean, unless you have, which case great, but likely you haven't lived in that culture. And even if you had, like, again, treat everyone as an individual, but family and community are very important generally, and so there can be a lot of hurt there if there's some trauma related to community or abandon or a sense of loss from there, or a sense of potential loss. But also, don't impose your values. I would hope that that's something that everyone can say. And also, as Shellsea was saying, or I think Shellsea was saying that, I just want to second that the therapy was created with white men in mind, but it's also a very white. Like if you look at the professionals, most of us are white.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, monocultural, born and raised in the States. And so, yeah, just keep that in mind and know that success doesn't look like them looking like you. Success looks like them being their authentic selves.
Yeah. We're all snaps in here for everybody. This is so good. It's so rich. I think the only thing that I would add is to get out there in our community. Spend some time with us, right? Like I always tell, because I forgot to tell you guys, I know some of you do know that I'm a approved supervisor for LMFTs. And I always tell my supervisees in one-on-one that, like, go out there and be a part of that community so you can learn and experience, right?
Yeah.
And doesn't make you an expert because you went out there or you went Latin dancing or something, right? But get out there, right? Spend time with us, right? If you have, like I tell, because I have family who is undocumented, I'm always like, ask me anything you want to, I will answer your questions. Even though I'm not undocumented, I can answer the questions that they may not feel safe to answer, so that they can have that other people who don't understand those experiences can understand, right? Like, and so I love that. I think that was the only thing I would add. So, and echoing back what some of you guys said already, like, I loved how you talked about this, our elders in the community are more solution focused. They like that, right? They want to, so I loved that you guys tied that in. So knowing what modalities work best, right? Even, and knowing that modality might not work for that elder, right? Or that individual, right? So awesome.
I need to
Okay.
add, it just came to my head, but know when to be vague, very vague with your notes, because especially
Thank
you know
you.
when that's going to be in the courts. So yeah, just know when to shut up when it comes to, if this doesn't need to be in the notes, don't add it in the notes.
Yes. No, I love that. That also made me remember how I always tell other therapists who ask that are not part of our community that I don't ask for socials. I don't ask. Like, I know that maybe there might be some policies and group practices, but like, I don't ask for those type of things to try to make it feel as comfortable as possible for everyone, right? I feel like a lot of group practices have gotten away from that, but I've seen early on in my career when I was starting out, there was like, oh, get their social, they're this and that. And I was like, well, that already can feel uncomfortable or threatening to some of my community members, right? And so even things like that, right? Or I talked about this in my training, ways that you can inquire about if they're having legal issues that isn't making a judgment or assuming because they're Latino that they have some type of, right? But I have on my paperwork just standard question of, is there any legal issues that I need to be aware of that I can support you in, or that you want to process, or any family members that are going through any legal issues that have been a stressor for your life? I ask whether they're white, brown, Black, Asian, like, I ask everyone that question. So that way they get to decide if they do have something or not, and if they're going to share it or not. Right. And so that's another thing that I thought of, but this was great, guys. So we're coming up to the last two questions here. So last two here. One is, and you guys can chime in any order here, is it for our Latinx community or anyone that is watching this that may not be from a therapy friendly community? We all talked about bits and pieces of how under the umbrella of Latinx and Hispanics that generally speaking, our community isn't, I call it therapy friendly because they don't know, right? They weren't taught that it was okay. So what would you just say to someone that is in that type of setting to encourage them to give therapy a try?
I think I would point out that therapy isn't just for, quote unquote, crazy people, that it's not a mental asylum or nothing, that there's a lot of work in between. And I know that can be the stereotype, especially if you're not used to therapy being normalized, is like, you need to go to therapy. Like, are you about to like kill someone or
Right? Or they're like, "Estás loca?" or what? And I'm like, "Well, maybe a little bit," and I'm okay with that. It makes life interesting.
yeah. So there's definitely a stigma there
Yes.
because or nothing kind of belief. But just know that you can come you don't even have to have a diagnosis to go to therapy. You can go in to talk about something that's been troubling you, and maybe you don't get you don't have a mental illness, but you still are working on something, or maybe you do have a mental illness, but it's not, a lot of people are walking around with mental illnesses that are undiagnosed, and
Mhm.
it's just not that uncommon. We just normalize it here a lot more than in other cultures.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for that.
I think I would have to agree with Dani, kind of just destigmatizing, but also kind of bringing to light, like, therapy can be very intimidating, right? You're sitting in a room with a stranger and you're opening up to them. But I really like to emphasize that, like, therapy is a lot about like finding yourself and getting to know yourself in a deeper level that helps with not only the relationship you have with yourself, but the relationship you have with others. And I find it kind of, when I worked at a school, when we would call parents and be like, hey, we would love to refer like your child for like in school therapy, they were like, well, there's nothing wrong with my child. And I was like, that's, it's not that there's something wrong with your child, but it's like we give them and we teach them the skills to be a better friend, be a better student. So it's that, like, emphasizing that, like, it's skill building. It's being able to be better in different aspects of your life and not just being seen as like crazy or like you are, something's wrong with you, because that doesn't mean that. Like, it's a space for you to develop who you are.
Yes, I love that. It made me think real quick that, like, a lot of times, especially right now with our community with targets on our back, the environment isn't designed for us, right? It's not friendly to us. And so being able to use therapy as a way to process that, or to learn, how can I help myself through these times that are difficult in this setting where it's not designed for me right now, right? Or I think of, I have ADHD, and something I specialize in supporting clients with. And it's like, a lot of many systems aren't designed for people with ADHD, right? So part of the therapy work is, how do we help you build a bridge to success in an environment that it was not designed for your neurodivergent. Same thing for like autism or whatnot, right? So I love that. I didn't mean to interrupt the flow, guys, so you guys jump in.
I would just add that, we are here to meet you where you're at. The right therapist, especially in the beginning when the biggest focus is building trust and rapport, the right therapist is not going to pressure you to talk about something before you are ready. Even if, like, you can come into the session and you might know, like, what is the reason that you're seeking therapy, and as much or as little as you are ready to talk about that, if it's a specific situation or event or something that's ongoing, our best tool in the initial stages is getting to know you, because until we get to know you, then only then can we like identify, like, and work and collaborate on what might work best for you. Like, are you the type of person that responds well to these types of things? What has worked for you in the past? It's a lot like getting to, know somebody new. And so while it's very understandable, there can be nerves and there can be fear and anxiety of the unknown starting therapy, we're really here for you. It's your hour or 60-minute, 90 minutes where maybe for the first time in your life, you're the priority. And so, normalizing that, and, yeah, we're here for you.
I love that. I love that. I was like, Dani, did you share? I can't remember. All of a sudden my brain blanked out. Did you share?
Yeah, I shared.
Oh, you did? Okay. My brain was like, wait, who am I missing? I loved that so much. I was going to say that, like, something that as you guys were talking, that I'd like to add is just knowing that, like, I loved hearing all you guys just piggybacking on everything what you're saying. And, like, I always tell parents, since I do a lot of work with younger kids, I'm always like, they're like, well, do they have anything? You know, what did you find, Victoria? Right? And I'm like, no, you know, they don't have anything. They don't have a formal diagnosis, but I'm so glad that you brought them in because now we get to prevent them from going full blown, you know, separation anxiety or whatnot. And so I love that. I don't think that our United States model of care promotes this enough that therapy is preventative. It is preventative care. And if we can shift to that, this is our part of our well-being so that we're not in crisis, right? And so give it a chance, right? Like we're trained here not to judge anyone, you know, and I love that, like, we're not going to be chismosas or chismosos, right? Like, because we can't be, guys, right? So people that are watching this, right? Like, we legally cannot say anything unless it's a health and safety issue or a legal, like a court order, we're court ordered by a judge, right? Or abuse, right? Abuse is for elders or children, or self-harm or harming someone else, right? Otherwise, our lips are sealed. And so this is a great opportunity to talk to someone and tell people, a trusted, compassionate person, that things you never told anybody, you get to tell it with us. So yeah, I love that. Last question, guys. We're at the final stretch here. Is it, and whoever wants to share first, you guys just kind of naturally jump in. What does it mean for you to be Latinx or Hispanic, or how you identify in the Latinx Hispanic community? What is it that you love about being a part of this community? What is it for you? No right or wrong answer.
I think for me, it's just kind of like that word you said, community. Like, we are a community. We are there to uplift. Nashville has such a rich, like, Latinx and Hispanic community here that uplifts each other, that is there to support, even just like with small businesses as well. I think that's kind of what it means, like, just being a community, being able to accept and understand others and continue learning. I think also just for me is acknowledging my privilege as a Latina born in the United States, and how I can use that to help my community and help those around me.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Diann. I love the Hispanic and Latinx community here in Nashville. I mean, I love everything. I love our food, trying restaurants owned by people from other countries there was a point I hadn't had Colombian food. There was a point where I hadn't had Ecuadorian food, and I love getting to know Latin American and Spanish speaking countries. There's a lot of us, there's a lot of us. There's so much, like you said, to learn. That I love our creatives. I think Latinx and Hispanic art is so beautiful. I love that when it's displayed, like, I get to look at that and be like, yeah, my community did that. Like, yes. It's awesome. I think, a lot of the values that, like, yes, maybe at large, our elders were raised with the idea that, like, we're strong. We have to be strong. And while we can deconstruct that, I think strength is, like, so deeply rooted in Hispanic and Latinx culture that, like, it's in our blood, it's in our blood that, like, naturally, like, we're strong, we're resilient. And
yes, that's the word, resiliency. I always think of that.
We continue to prove that even as our community is being targeted. Like, we are still thriving. We are still those of us who have privilege are, like, helping our community. That is what it means to be Hispanic or Latinx for me, is carrying on that part of being strong and being resilient while redefining that rest and asking for help also aligns with that too.
I love that. Thank you. What about you, Dani?
I think I also recognize my privilege as, like, a white European Hispanic kind of person that also, has an American mom, Spanish dad, but getting to see how welcoming the culture is and how full of joy, even in the midst of suffering and persecution and just like looking at even like again in the food, but also like even in the dancing, like you look at, quote unquote white people dancing like the waltz and stuff. And yeah, it's lovely, but then you bring out salsa dancing and it's fun and you get
Yeah.
to enjoy it. And such an emphasis in loving each other and looking out for one another. And I just think that's really great and special.
Yeah, I love that. I had two things that I thought of. I think now I can't say that all Latinx or community members do this, but when you guys talked about like community, I really do believe none of us are perfect, no human being, but that we want to lift each other up. I've seen so many time and time again where people do. I can't think of the word in Spanish, but like my in-laws do this a lot, where everyone puts in 1 month $100 or something, and then the next month one person gets to win that money. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Like a tanda?
Yes, tanda. Right, okay. I always was like, what is it called? I can't remember. And then I'll be like, tanga. And they're like, no, like your tanga for underwear. I'm like, no. But yes, pulling together, right? So that people can, you're pulling resources together. That's what I think our community is we pull resources together. We make a way when there was no way.
Yeah.
When other people said there was no way, we make a way. It's in our sangre, to be resilient, that we will do it. No, it's not, we can't. It's how do I get there?
Yeah.
That's what I think like when I think of our community, and echoing and yes to everyone. Well, yes, like us feeling our ancestors, guys, up in here. This is good. I love that. I love it. Is there any other final statements? I really appreciated you guys. I know we went over time that I had planned. I think all my panels go that way, but this was really rich, and I really appreciate the time that you guys gave. For me, it was a privilege to hear each one of your stories, and I really, I can't wait to see the clients that get connected to you guys because of the time that you spent here with me tonight and hearing what you guys do and your passion. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's
Thank
been
you,
a pleasure.
Victoria.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, we will see you later, guys. Thank you so much.